behalf of the Rotary Club of LaGrange, it is my privilege to induct 2 new members today. This is Sarah Flowers from the Scout Office. She's worn all kinds of hats at the Scout Office. And I think you've been there at least as long as I've been in scouting here.
20 years.
20, I got you by 5. Excellent. Very good, very good. And Tracy Johnson from the UK Cooperative Extension Office, our first corporate membership. Congratulations. So there's 2 other ladies that will be joining, and we want to get those ladies some of the gifts and all that kind of stuff. We get all that coming up here as we go. So for Sarah and Tracy, you're beginning a great adventure in leadership, friendship, and in service to our community and throughout the world. You have been invited to membership in the Rotary Club of LaGrange, and we are excited to accept you because of your good character, high ethical standards, a person who has a heart of service and will represent our club well wherever you are. We're so glad to welcome you. Rotary Club is all over the world, 1.4 million members, 46,000 clubs in 200 different countries. We encourage you to learn what you can about Rotary Club, and are we going to give them folders?
Got folders, yep.
Got folders?
Yep.
All right, now it's time for the gifts. All right, so we got folders here, and we only got 1 folder for the UK group. I thought, are we going to get her more, or is that?
They'll each get their own folder, just one
One
plaque to hang in the office, but they'll each have a folder.
Very good. And I have loved learning about Rotary in my 25 years as a member of Rotary Club. I've read all that stuff. I make jokes about it. It helps you fall asleep. But I do read it, and I think it's great to read and find out what Rotary International is up to, and also learn as much as you can about our club. We have a rich history here at the LaGrange Rotary Club, and we have been involved coming up on 100 years in this community and making a huge impact throughout the decades. We will get you involved in some of the different areas of service. We serve in vocational service, community service, youth service, international service. These are known as our 5 avenues of service, and club service, our 5 avenues of service. And through your membership, you will enjoy the chance to make friends with people from all across the community in all kinds of different businesses where you can connect and encourage each other as Rotarians. When we join Rotary, we become part of something that's bigger than ourselves. It is my pleasure to give you your pin.
They're on the.
You already got
it.
Very good.
You're gonna officially
and wear that each week because what's your current rank? General. Are you the general? Or admiral? She works for a living. She's fine. If she catches you not wearing your pin, I got a fancy pin. Then she can fine you $1. Oh, Sarah's
a lot of dollars.
And you can be the general substitute if you want, but she's not here. That's a good attitude. All right. So I have a challenge for both of you. The challenge is in the next 6 months, I want to invite you to invite someone else to be part of the Grange Rotary Club. We have a goal of getting back up to 100. We are at something like 65-ish. 66. And we have been growing slowly, and we're hoping to get that momentum going and get over 100. So if you would accept my challenge, invite 1 person to Rotary in the next 6 months. You can invite more than that, but that's a good start. You accept my challenge?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Excellent. All right. And so I want to invite you also, each one, to share something of what it means to join our Rotary Club. And Sarah, if you'll go first.
Well, thank you, Al, for this wonderful reading material. I'll be sure to take that home and get on that right away.
Excellent. And you'll be quizzed next week.
Oh, good to know. With my pen. Make sure I have that too. No, thank you all very much. I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity to getting to know each and every one of you. As Al mentioned, I've been a part of the community for a long time. I was born and raised in this general area. I've been with the Scouts for 20 years, serving in many different roles, recently switching over to development. And so when I've met with several different faces here in the room, I was like, what do I need to do to get involved? Get to know people. And like, join the Grange Rotary Club. So based on that, I'm very happy to be here, and I very much look forward to getting to know each and every one of you and how I can help you all in the community and how you all can help me as well with scouting and what we're doing. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to be in this organization and to get to know you guys better, and also to see how Extension and you guys, how we might work together to serve the community. So for those of you who don't know Extension, we serve homeowners, we serve farmers, we serve youth in our different program areas. So I think there will be a great partnership moving forward. And I look forward to it. And for those who don't know, I'm going to embarrass Tom Cox. Tom is a fellow McLean County, and that's where we're from, where we grew up, and he's also a cousin of mine. So,
Oh, man.
you know, that's good.
Oh, now I just know not to talk to you about Tom. Okay, great. And let's give a warm welcome to our newest Rotary members.
You got a free pass. Don't forget, we are having a board meeting today. This is the last one you have to sit under me, so thank you very much for those who are willing to attend. And now, at least 5 minutes late, I want to introduce Major Jeremy McQuarrie. He and I were speaking before the meeting and covered we have a friend in common, Barry Dunn, who's spoken to our club twice and is becoming, I think, really important to the Louisville area. So we're thrilled about that. Went to high school together, played baseball together, went to Lindsey Wilson together. So he comes with really great reference on that. Thank you for being here. I'll get you some.
Man. The other one died. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I appreciate the opportunity. Captain Walker called me. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it here. Had some other plans that were in place, and then I was able to commit. And then yesterday afternoon, plans changed again, and late yesterday afternoon, they changed again. So now I am here. But I'm excited to be here. I have to admit, it's the first time I've ever been to a Rotary Club meeting, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself so far. Anytime given the opportunity to talk about fish and wildlife, I love to do that. A little bit about myself. I live in Columbia, Kentucky. That's where I was born and raised, but I work out of headquarters. So I drive to Frankfurt every day. My wife and I have 4 kids, 3 girls and a son. 14, 11, and 9 are the girls, and our boy is the youngest, and he is 6. In my spare time, of which I don't have very much of with 4 kids, I do enjoy hunting and fishing and endurance sports. But what I'm here to talk to you a little bit about today is not just fish and wildlife, but the law enforcement division in particular. I have a PowerPoint. I've been told I got about, what do I say, about 20 minutes? So I told them if I go too long, I see hand motions in the audience, in the crowd, I know I need to speed up, but we have a couple videos incorporated as well. At any time you have questions, please feel free to ask them. I enjoy that. I love the interaction, but most people know Kentucky Conservation Officers as game wardens, and I'll speak about that a little further on. We all are sworn peace officers, and we do bear the police title as well. We are a division of Fish and Wildlife.
Sorry, you were working on something else. Let me get you that.
Okay, yes, sir. We're one of 7 divisions of Fish and Wildlife, and we are the law enforcement division in particular. Some history. In the 1700s, it was recognized by early settlers that, hey, if we utilize all our resources too soon, we won't have any resources in the future. So in late 1700s, Daniel Boone, he first made an effort in Virginia to protect deer in particular, because that was the main resource that they utilized at that time. I think we got a pause there. There we go. Early 1900s, is when we first saw game wardens in the state of Kentucky. But oddly enough, they were assigned to counties. So that is an actual picture of a 1900s game warden. It was all about law enforcement at that time. Fish and Wildlife hadn't been formed yet. Again, these were county officers, and there wasn't much with respect to wildlife management in place at all. But in 1912, a division of game and fish was created, but it was inside the Department of Agriculture. But that's when we first started to have game wardens that were assigned to the state of Kentucky. So Kentucky conservation officers in some form or fashion have been in existence since 1912. In 1918, we lost our first officer in the line of duty in Breathitt County, and that was Elijah Roberts. Elijah Roberts was killed in the line of duty after being ambushed after returning home from a multi-day investigation. His body was discovered by his kids. Since that time, we've lost 9 more officers in the line of duty for a total of 10. We have a memorial at headquarters where we memorialize them throughout the year and at one particular time during police week annually. Our main mission at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife as a whole across all 7 divisions is to conserve, protect, and enhance Kentucky's fish and wildlife resources and provide outstanding opportunities for hunting, fishing, trapping, boating, shooting sports, wildlife viewing, and related activities. Something I didn't tell you all as I started, a lot of these photos aren't current. I always think it's neat that we can go back and look at the history of our agency and our division. So you'll see some newer videos incorporated, newer photos, and some older ones as well. And this is a photo from early 2000s, but you'll notice a uniform change as I go through these. 1972, you're starting to see that even though we were state officers at the time, there wasn't a lot of uniformity, but 1972 is when we started to see uniformity. But look in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, don't really look like a state issued vehicle. So during that time, they were state employees, but they were utilizing their own vehicles to patrol in. And by the looks of that truck, they could probably go just about anywhere they needed to go. 1996, I was asked this question before we started. So many of you all probably, when you were on the Kentucky waterways, you saw Kentucky Water Patrol. They were a division of the Kentucky State Police. And documents I found, it all says around 1996. So I envision there was probably like a December, January where things changed. It could have been 95 or it could have been 97. But for all purposes, 1996, we merged. Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, Kentucky Water Patrol merged. And that's kind of when we started hearing the terminology and the title of conservation officer. So you went from Kentucky Water Patrol officers, game wardens to conservation officers. At that, the biggest obvious part of the merger was the game wardens were more about fish and wildlife, water patrol was more on the water. We incorporated all 3 into one. So some of our training, it was about 1996 when formalized training began. Over time, that training's evolved and changed tremendously, just like it has with other police agencies across the entire state and the nation as well. As it sits right now, the training our officers go through upon hire are 20 weeks of training at the Department of Criminal Justice Training. So other than Louisville, Lexington, and Kentucky State Police, that's the same training that your police officers and deputies go to across the Commonwealth. Now, what we typically do, there's 14 weeks of our Fish and Wildlife Academy they have to go to. How it usually works, they'll do 7 weeks with us at our Fish and Wildlife Academy. Then they'll go to DOCJT for 20 weeks, then back to us for another 7 weeks. That can fluctuate some, but that's typically how it goes. Once they graduate from both DOCJT and our academy, they have 12 weeks of field training program. So they're invested with a lot of time. They're away from their families for long periods of time. And it's a big commitment. So I was thinking about how could I show a ton of photos of our training because we're so proud of it. And that's a big part of law enforcement, as you all know. And we recently graduated a class. It was known as Academy Class 26. So we created a video lodge with photos to play at their graduation ceremony. So I'm just going to bring that video along and share it with you guys. At the very beginning of it, some of you have probably been in the military and current police officers, but you'll hear a cadence. And so that's what you're going to hear in the background is a cadence as these photos are coming up of the academy class. And at the end, you'll hear the conservation officer creed. It's about 4 minutes long. And we sat back in a party. It's okay, Lord, please don't die. Said, well, okay, Lord, please don't die. It's now he's calling. Next up, free. So the boat paddle at the very end, it's something that they have to keep with them throughout the entire academy. Anywhere they go, the boat paddle goes with them. And that started many years ago. And it's amazing how much you can motivate people with something as simple as a boat paddle. But they literally, it goes everywhere they go. They polish it, they take care of it. And at the end, when they graduate, it's all just so they can put their signature on it and hang it in the academy. So we got rows of boat paddles. But that's just a glimpse into our academy. Most people ask a lot of questions about water survival, and if you've heard anything about us, that's the toughest part of our academy. Second to being gone away from home and your family that amount of time. But it's a long enduring week. And Captain Walker, you probably know this. We recently has been incorporated in the KSP Academy, so they do some water survival training with us as well. But that is our academy. Again, this was discussed a little bit before I came up here. So 50% of our revenue comes from hunting, fishing, and trapping license sales. So no general fund dollars there. And 35% are excise taxes paid for by outdoorsmen and women and boaters through the Pittman-Robertson Dingell Johnson Act. 10% are your motorboat registration fees, and the other 5% comes from federal grants and gifts. So that's how the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife is funded as a whole. I'm gonna go into a few of the things our officers do on a daily basis. May throw some stories in, I'm trying to get too long-winded. Illegal fishing nets. So we have commercial fishing in the state of Kentucky that you can legally engage in, but from time to time, people don't follow rules and regulations, but there are certain bodies of water that you are prohibited from allowing you to commercial fish in. So that's a large task for us. It's not easy work. It's truly labor and work, and you're having to wear all this gear and still continue to work in those type of environments. You can see they're pulling out a hoop net there, and again, these are some of the older pictures, but legal trapping. Trapping is something that has changed over years. It was a major source of income for the country 30, 40 years ago. Not so much now. We still have a lot of people who trap within the Commonwealth. Illegal muscling. Has anybody in here ever muscled before? So muscling kind of died as well. Brief story. I never got to work a lot of muscling in my career because it was before my time. Even though we still have people who muscle to a degree, muscle is just essentially an oyster. So it's what it looks like. So it's a shell that you'll find in different river systems, Salt River, Rolling Fork rivers. But there's limits on muscling. And many, many years ago, people would take over the limit and go as far as they would scuba dive at night. Wear solid black, scuba dive at night, and they would take these rafts and they would float them along with them. And that's one of the few times that photos, the reason I put it there, they typically would tape up their rafts, spray paint them, or have black rafts so you couldn't see them. But our officers would spend a lot of time with night vision trying to catch mussels, because it's extremely difficult to do, but all in an effort to protect the resource. Private property. We get a lot of calls. Many of you have farms, land, or you've had people who hunt or fish or trespass either way without permission. So we do a lot of private property enforcement for people hunting, fishing without permission. Poaching investigation and biological study. I used the photos there. A lot of times, early spring is an example. We'll go into a bear den. We may have a GPS collar on a bear, so we know where she's denning at, and that time of year they're very disoriented. So you can go in a lot of times, get their cubs, take samples off the cubs, put collars on them as well, so we can learn more about their habits, their movements. So our officers not only enforce the law, we work along with agency biologists as well, very close. Poaching, again, it's all about protecting the resource. If you overuse or take away, it may not exist any longer. Many of you maybe, you'll see some assembly required, have heard about the robo deer. Got any deer hunters in here? Got a few. You may or may not have heard stories over the years. So sometimes our officer will set up a fake deer and it's remote control. And our goal to setting up the fake deer is to try to keep people driving up and down the road and shooting deer from their vehicle, or shooting them on farms where they don't have permission. So the some assembly required is a little bit of a joke, because over time, these decoys that we use, they'll get a little worn. You have to put their head on top of the body and it turns. So when it gets worn, you can kind of see a separation at the neck line. It's easy to go, hey, this is not real. But we do use the robo deer sometimes to catch people who are hunting illegally. This is just photos of some of the evidence that's been collected over the years, deer that have been poached. You'll see the spotlight down in the corner. We spend a lot of time in the fall sitting in dark fields and places where people who are driving around shining to see if they can not just see a deer, but some shooting a deer at night. You can only take a deer during daylight hours. Little something a lot of people don't know. And the conversation I was asked earlier, when did you all become the police? And we've always been the police to a certain degree, but we just started putting police on our uniforms, and for the reason of officer safety. So a lot of people don't know what a game warden does or what a population does, even though our mission has never changed. When we pull up on the scene, we need people to know that we are the police for our protection as well as theirs, or know who they can come to if they need help. We don't want to be somewhere and somebody needs help and they don't recognize us as somebody who can help them. But we do encounter meth labs, and that's kind of a thing of the past to a certain degree, but that's an older photo, but we do encounter people who utilize drugs. We have thousands and thousands of public land acres across the Commonwealth, and ultimately there's not enough police to go around. Our mission again is to protect those lands, and sometimes we're the only ones out there. So we have to be trained there to handle any situation we may come in contact with. I failed to mention there in that photo, it was showing the relationship working together with Kentucky State Police. That was one of our officers and a trooper that had worked that meth lab together. Waterfowl. So Kentucky conservation officers are federally deputized. That's been misunderstood a lot of times. We have federal authority to assist U.S. Fish and Wildlife if somebody's in violation of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So in other words, in protection of waterfowl and doves. That's where our federal authority is limited to, but waterfowl is a big sport, and we work a lot of waterfowl in late winter and in rough conditions. Resource protection. Ultimately, if you're taking more than the law allows and taking away from the resource in excessive amount, it's truly stolen opportunities for people who are hunting and fishing legally. In evidentiary photos of large amounts of wildlife that was harvested illegally. Poaching investigations. This is going to lead me into a story. Interesting photo, hot air balloon. This was a rescue where a hot air balloon had gotten away. Had some people in it, obviously, and they knew they were coming down, didn't know exactly where, but we ended up being able to put a boat on and landed on the boat to bring them to safety. So water safety and enforcement. This is kind of when the merger with Kentucky State Police occurred, Kentucky Water Patrol. We will spend the overwhelming majority of our time beginning May to early September recreational boating enforcement and some fishing as well. But we spend a ton of time on Kentucky's waterways, whether it be in kayaks, large patrol boats, or even small jump boats. We're out on the water. These are some boat accidents that have occurred, and I can identify about 4 of those that were actually like Cumberland, but you'll see those larger boats at greater speeds, like they'll go ashore and end up in trees. It can be extremely dangerous. But again, that's why it's important that we have officer presence on the water. I mentioned earlier, working in nasty weather, there are days you go on patrol, you don't have the option of whether I don't want to get out of the truck. Now, I have to admit, there's been times when I've been pretty close to that heater, so I may not have gone out on the water or out in the field when I should, but ultimately we don't get that option, especially if we got a call. You're going no matter what. So the gear that we have and the gear that we carry with us has to be for inclement weather of all types. Boat accidents and drowning investigations. It's important to know that we're not the only agency in the state that works boat accidents and drownings. Troopers may work a drowning depending upon where it's at. Actually, Louisville Metro, they have a boating enforcement section, but ultimately, the overwhelming majority of boat accidents and drownings are worked by Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. And those, instances that we all dread, calls we dread to go to, because not only is it tough for us, even more so tough for families, but those are calls that we go to more times than we would like to, for sure. Homeland Security, we get a lot of funding through Homeland Security grants. Your ports, your dams, power plants, other types of water supplies, we're responsible for protecting those areas. And we work closely with Homeland Security to ensure that we have the equipment to do so. This is just a map of some of those locks and dams on the Ohio River. Obviously, that's our biggest river system that we work on with respect to our relationship with Homeland Security. I thought that was interesting. 150 million tons of cargo, billions of dollars of shipping through the Commonwealth each year on our waterways. I always get the same response when I show this photo. That is a timber rattler. That's a snake that we have in the state of Kentucky. Believe it or not, I didn't realize it. till I saw this photo. That's a photo of a case I worked in Taylor County many years ago, but that is truly a boa constrictor under that refrigerator. And it's as big as you think a boa constrictor is. It amazed me how it ended up under that refrigerator. And the next photo is from the same case. This case is over. I can say it was it started out as an exotic animal seen crossing the roadway, and it led to a knock on a door. This turned into a huge reptile case, and it extended into the drug enforcement agency. So it turned into a federal level drug case as well. But that gaboon viper, quick story, it was in an aquarium, and we would walk past it and you would hear, and I never heard that before. What is doing that? So we'd never seen a gaboon viper. I think they're South Africa, maybe. World's heaviest viper, longest fangs of any viper in the world. But that's what they do. They blow up when you walk past them. That's their warning, is that, and it sounds truly just like one of us huffing, but that house had several timber rattlers, a canebrake rattlesnake, western diamondbacks, and that cobra. So would you drive this truck? This is from a separate case where they see a lot of reptiles, but I have to give credit where it's due. Our wildlife division actually loaded those reptiles and drove the vehicle, not law enforcement. These small alligators, we work a lot in the pet trade. There's certain animals you can't, they're prohibited from being in the state of Kentucky. They're on the inherently dangerous list. Believe it or not, alligators are some of those, but you can still buy them at a lot of pet stores. But a lot of people get them, and you don't anticipate how quickly they're going to grow. And this, I thought it was a bluegill. So what happens? They grow too big for the aquarium, and it's just hard for some people to euthanize the animal, so they want to turn them loose in the wild. So those alligators, they can live for a period of time in fresh water. So this fish was caught in a Kentucky lake. I'm not sure which Kentucky lake many years ago, but when they started reeling, they thought they had a bluegill. They were bluegill fishing. It's an alligator, and it was from the pet trade. Somebody released. Sometimes we have to put the cuffs on wildlife. We get a lot of nuisance wildlife calls. So you'll see, an injured fox and an injured raccoon or nuisance traffic for wildlife. So probably don't get a lot of bears here, but it's the season where we have a lot of bear sightings across the Commonwealth because they're starting to migrate west because they're in breeding season. The young males are being pushed out of their homes by the bigger males, and it's like, okay, I need to go find a girlfriend of sorts. So I follow a river system west and realize there's not any here. Then they start their way back. But during that time frame, they'll occasionally hit up a dumpster and cause a lot of talk in the community. Aircraft.
Cross the line.
I'm sorry.
Did it cross the line to get over to Indiana?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not certain. Aircraft enforcement. This is where we also work closely with state police. We don't have our own aircrafts, but we utilize state police aircrafts, and we will fly for illegal bait sites. And to explain that, a lot of times during turkey season, people will put out corn and wheat or some kind of seed to attract turkeys, and that's, like I said, that's illegal. And in the winter, they'll do that for waterfowl as well. Just throw corn in the pond so they can get ducks coming in to eat, then they'll shoot the pond. Hard for us to see that from the ground, so we'll fly and we'll spot that from the air and take a GPS for it, and then we'll go in and do our documentation. We also work closely a lot with the Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We work fencing mainly on our public land, so it's illegal to remove plants from federal or public land, but they don't keep people trying to do so from time to time. So we work hand in hand with them a lot. We work a ton of dump sites. Ultimately, people will dump on private land a lot of times, but they tend to go to public land where there's not a lot of houses around. So if you see one of our guys been over a pile like that with gloves on, they're looking for somebody's mail, most likely, to try to figure out who dumped. But we do work a lot of those. This is internet investigation. This is the guy who started that section for us, but we do a lot of things online. A lot of investigations start there. We have a special investigation unit that does a lot of electronic crimes investigation. I'm still going too long. Am I good? No, you're good. Okay. Because we have the training to be on the water, we have the equipment, we go to a lot of natural disasters as well. as do other police agencies across the state, but we're equipped to be on the water. These are some photos from East Kentucky. Not the most recent flood. What we're doing is, hey, we're getting calls. We need a rescue here, we need a rescue there, and we're going to get people out of homes, rising floodwaters. Could be an ice storm. You all recall the West Kentucky ice storm. Again, we worked hand in hand with a lot of other police agencies to respond there. There's photos of the West Liberty tornadoes. You can see how disastrous that was. We spent a lot of time, not just the law enforcement division of Fish and Wildlife, but our engineering division, our biologists as well. Kind of our sleeping quarters, you know, it's like that for everybody that volunteers to go work with disasters. You really never know where you're going to end up. So our officers carry cots around. Just anywhere they can put up a cot and get some sleep, that's what they do. If it requires us to run a chainsaw to open up the roadway, they'll do that as well. Hurricane Katrina. This photo was everywhere during Hurricane Katrina. And I can't remember the backstory necessarily, but it was everywhere. Moving on to youth, you know, we spend a lot of time in the schools, going to youth events, putting on fishing derbies and hunting events so we can get youth involved in the outdoors. Many of our officers have annual events where they sponsor a youth deer hunt or a youth turkey hunt, or we just had one in Hazard over the weekend, a large fishing event. I can't remember how many years it's been going on, but many, they've kept it an event. There's just some photos of youth deer hunts and turkey hunts and quail hunts. There's some photos of youth fishing derbies. You'll see in that picture is a canine. We had a pretty large canine section. And we've recently, it dissolved. We've recently brought it back. We have 3 canines again now. They're all winter mates, believe it or not, yellow Labrador retrievers, and they specialize in narcotics detection. That's kind of where our job has changed a little bit. You run into a lot of narcotics, especially on the water. So we just started that program back. Like I mentioned earlier, our officers spend a lot of time in classrooms educating our youth, teaching them how to shoot guns at different events. A Green Wing event is a Ducks Unlimited event that's held annually in West Kentucky, where we take kids hunting as well. The last, and I'm wrapping it up, the last thing I have to talk about and show is what I mentioned earlier, was our officer memorial that we have at headquarters in Frankfort. Annually, we memorialize our fallen officers, and this is the video from this year's memorial ceremony that I'll close with. It may take it just a minute to load.
While it's loading, you mentioned something about lower numbers of or lower work on that. Is that statewide, and is that something that's not longer?
Meth's still a problem. Sorry, I should have clarified. It's mainly the labs. We're not seeing near the meth labs that we once were. A lot of it's coming out of Mexico now. Captain Walker, feel free to elaborate, but that's what we're seeing, more crystal methamphetamine versus the old, sorry, let me step out of this, the old shake and bake, where they put it in a bottle and shake it up and create meth that way. So we're not seeing the lab as much as we need to. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, the local cooks that everybody became familiar with over the last 20 years, kind of gone to the wayside. The dope so cheap, manufacturers out the border. It's just like, you're getting fentanyl, you're getting home. Stuff still here. It is, and to the major's point, you know, he talks about the transition from our state water patrol to go to wildlife. Kentucky's got, in my assignment, special ops years ago, Kentucky's got the largest amount of navigable waterways in the South. So, I mean, Kentucky's unique. They have got a lot of ground, a lot of water. That's because the Ohio River is all. It is, but it's just all of the rivers that we've got. It's crazy. Yeah, it's amazing how much.
You all probably heard this before. You made me think of something interesting. Lake Cumberland itself has more shoreline than the state of Florida. My video bailing. Well, it's probably time. It was just a video. Shameless plug here. You can go on YouTube and watch our officer memorial. But in closing, sorry I've stayed a little too long, but I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate y'all's time. If nobody has any questions, then
I have one quick
oh,
question.
awesome.
Do you have any female officers?
We do. We have 4.
And how many of you have so far?
Right now, we're sitting at 119. Sir.
Officer, have you seen any sightings of black bear in Cumberland County in Kentucky? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
in Burnsville.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, they're there.
They're there for sure.
We have a lake house there and they are absolutely there.
Yes,
Like I
sir.
said, you all track those or anything like that?
Not a lot. So we've never introduced black bears in the state of Kentucky. They've all migrated back in.
We think they came
Never
across
stopped.
Dale Hollow Lake
For sure.
from Tennessee. We
Up
think that's
through the
why-
Daniel Boone National Forest and,
Yeah.
sir.
Tell me what you guys are doing about wild hogs. They're going crazy in the southern part of the United States. Here, I don't know. Good enough.
For sure. No, our wildlife division, there's a ton of management practices in place and they're trying to keep wild hogs out of the state of Kentucky. But you're right, we certainly don't want them here if we can prevent it. Another side note, you probably start to see or hear about, we're getting some armadillos. We're not trying to eradicate the armadillos, but it's interesting. They're starting to migrate north as much. So. Not right now.
I was in Missouri last weekend. It was a week that they had. They used to not be in Missouri either. So are we gonna start seeing the population increase?
We could, I'll be honest, I'd have to refer to wildlife division, but we could. I know in my time with Fish and Wildlife, we've seen more and more armadillos. I don't know exactly what their predators are here, so if that will decrease, but it's not much different than they have in Alabama and Georgia where they have plenty of armadillos, so potentially.
As a landowner, we've got livestock, and maybe not armadillos, but are we allowed to take out wildlife if they are?
Good question. Yeah, so sure, as a landowner, as a landowner, you have the right to protect your property. There are statutes, if you're more interested, I can get you more of those that can guide you along, but ultimately, we do have the right to protect our property. And as citizens of the Commonwealth, sir.
Is climate change contributing to all
Hmm. Good question, I'm not sure. Certainly not sure. Sir.
Do you still have, anybody in Kentucky is required to pass a boater's license driving course?
It depends on your age. Now, if you're an adult, you're not required to, but there are age restrictions and motor power restrictions, anything over 10 horsepower, if you're under the age of 12, that type of thing, where it is a requirement unless you're with an adult. But we utilize NASBLA, which is the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, their guidelines through U.S. Coast Guard, which dictates that. Anybody else? Ma'am?
Out like if there's a manhunt or
A lot. Sorry, that didn't, sorry, Tracy, your question is that important. Keep going, please. I'm sorry.
No, that's a good question, but yes, ma'am. Any way we can assist. All right, thank you, guys.
Major McQuarrie, I'm going to ask you to come back up for just 1 second because I have a gift for you. You have a real responsibility for our state in wildlife and environmental protection matters. Great deal out here, as we are guided by the four-way test you heard us recite for a while ago. I'm going to give this to you as a reminder of that four-way test, but we know you're guided just as well. And you leave that as a remembrance of the effort that you have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Because that's going to entice everybody to stay around, I'm going to read this first, and then we'll go to the Phil Landis video. 3, 4, 5. Oh, man.
Nope.
Fran Scott,
Come on, Fran. Go Cards.
Cardinal Red.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that was pretty weak.
It went around twice, but just barely. You get pizza. All right, everybody, the video we've all been waiting for. Denise?
But Bill has left.
He has. He was afraid of it, I'm sure.
Oh. You are involved.
Yeah.
Didn't start to film.
No.